Is the Diary of a Lady Band Director podcast, brought to you by the Passion Is Network.
Hello. Hey, and Shield. I haven't seen you in a long time, so we're gonna do a little online catching up in a little bit. Just because I'm happy to see your face. I'm happy to see your face. And Jennifer, she'll be on in a second. She's doing mommy duties. I think, you know what? That's why this podcast exists. If there can't be space for mommy duties, wife duties, life duties, then why have it at all? And Shield, I haven't seen you in so long.
Like a month.
I know.
Some weeks.
School started for you. I started Friday. We started the school week on a Friday.
Oh, wow.
Girl, that's ghetto, ain't it? It's ghetto.
But we did the same thing. We started July 28th. So
Why would people do that? That's just not fair.
I don't know. I guess you get their shopping list. They had a weekend to get it.
How's your school year been? You've been in school for a month, right?
Yes.
And I just started Friday.
Oh wow. We've been having a pretty decent year. We started off with our P.B.I.S. and that's about it. Giving out tokens.
Said giving out tokens. What?
Yeah.
Is that like an incentive?
Yes.
Okay. What do you get with tokens? I'm intrigued. I'm always trying to learn how to be a better teacher. So,
well, it's a school-wide thing. So, like when they're caught doing something they're supposed to be doing, they earn a token. They can buy extra activity day. They can wear a hat for a day. Wear your shoes off for a day. Well, some teachers are like, nah, not in my room.
What? Hold on. Rewind, because you're not going to just slide by that. You cannot have your shoes on for a day in school.
In class. Well, this is elementary, so they're in that one teacher's class or two. But I told them they had to wear their shoes in my room.
And Shell, that's I was like, what? Hold on. You know that them babies' feet. Listen, I learned as a mom, I learned with my son at infancy. I didn't know that those little cute little digits stink. And I can imagine, you teach elementary school now, right?
Right.
I can imagine the hygiene on them babies is no, oh boy.
That's why the teachers were like, not in my room. It's like, who came up with that one? I'm like, I don't know.
I had a sleepover. My son had a sleepover Friday into just a few hours ago with his cousins and his best friend. And so Lauren was over here. Lauren was like, they don't smell good. I was like, yeah. I mean, because they're
boys.
No, not just boys.
Oh, my man.
Well, they're all in puberty. Everybody, all of his friends, clearly because he's turning 12 in about a month and a half. But his cousins are 11. He's turning 12. He's got a cousin who's 14. His best friend is 12. That's that age where they stinky. I mean, they stinky. And that's cute to have that incentive. That wouldn't be my incentive.
Right.
Give them homework passes or something, but don't.
Well, yeah, they have homework pass. They have extra recess. If you get like 25, 20, you can give a shout out to somebody on the school announcements. 25, you can choose to be a administrator assistant or have lunch with an administrator, but the administrator has to buy what you want to eat for lunch. So a lot of them been trying to save for them 25 tokens.
They didn't think about that. They didn't think about that incentive because some of our babies are well exposed to like the finer things in life. I know my son, he would be like, "Oh, really? Okay, let's go to meet Chris."
Well, you're in Barnesville, so there's only so many places they can eat.
I'm telling you, these babies got smartphones. They will find the most expensive. They will be like, "Let me have some lobster souffle." They have developed.
Everybody serves lobster in Barnesville.
They're not the peanut butter and jelly kids.
No,
we were.
They love Chick-fil-A. Well, we don't even have a Chick-fil-A here either. But we have
Wait a minute, you don't have a Chick-fil-A?
We don't have a Walmart. We have to drive to Griffin to go to Walmart.
Okay, so this is sounding more like my hometown. Akakeek doesn't have anything in my hometown. Okay. It's like it's pretty rural. It's not rural to the sense that you can't, like, there's a grocery store. We have Giant Safeway. we have like, but there's no Walmart, and they protest. Every time someone tries to bring it up, they refuse to have a Walmart in my hometown.
Yeah, that happened here because they feel like it's gonna close the mom and pop store. So,
and that's exactly why they because like I said, it's still kind of rule. Well, we got to talk a little bit, and I know Jennifer is coming. Jennifer is here, but not here. She's doing dirty diaper duty. Ooh, okay. God bless the people who got little ones. It ain't me. Shops closed. Closed. So, talk a little bit about why this topic. This topic came up because one, I'm noticing a lot of new educators. There are a lot of new band directors on the scene. Like, not saying that, maybe social media makes it more in our face, but there are a lot of new band directors, a lot of positions, people who fill positions on the college level, high school, middle school, elementary. I'm saying like all these posts, a lot of people came out with music education degrees or decided to go into music education, even if that wasn't their path. And I said, man, they got to feel like me. When I first got into education, I was in grad school to get my master's in music education, which meant that was going to be my certification track. I took education classes undergrad, but I wanted the master's degree because I wanted more money. Let me just be real. I wanted more money. I looked at that salary. I said, that's cute. And that ain't for me. That's not my ministry. I need more money. So I'm noticing, and I said, they school years just started. There's no way all of these acronyms. And in particular, when it comes to space. See, you're making that face. I remember my first department meeting, and they just start flying the acronyms. Right. I don't know. Is that the same for you?
Yes. I guess like now it's not overwhelming. It's just become an acceptable thing. Like education has so many acronyms. And my sister is funny because she just started teaching this year. It's her first year. And she was like, y'all have so many acronyms in education. I'm like, yeah, we do. It's funny that's what we're talking about now. But yeah, you can't get blindsided by all the different acronyms. And I used to always ask, okay, what is that? What is that? What does that mean? Because they rarely included us in these meetings, and then they get to talking about data and the this and that. And I'm like, okay, what is that? Like when we do our teacher evaluation, that's a whole world of acronyms, because you got in Texas, in Georgia you have TEACs, but in Georgia you have something too. I forgot what it's called, but it sounds about the same. So I'm like, wait, I thought Texas was TEACs, and they're like, no, we have TEACs here in Georgia. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, we have a PLP. They got a lot of acronyms.
All right, well, wait a minute. What is PLP? Because they're different in regions and states too.
Oh, well, here it's like your professional learning plan.
Okay, so we do have PLPs. Maybe I just ignore it because I'm kind of like, oh no, we do have them, but they're not called PLPs. They're called IDPs, individualized learning plan. Yeah. So IOPs. So see,
okay. Like we have LGPE here.
We don't. What's LGP?
Right.
Well, what's LGP? See, I'm learning.
No, LGPE, that's the Georgia thing for large group performance evaluation. So that's what they call our festival.
Okay, and we are still calling it festival.
Right.
But now we started to move to music performance assessments, MPAs. I'm starting to see that now, but when I first started, it was called festival. Right. However, in Baltimore metropolitan area, the kids called it adjudication. And I was like, what's adjudication? That sounds serious. And it was like, oh, festival. I said, okay. So we got a lot of the same things, different acronyms for same things. But there is a question. There's a question. And Jennifer, I don't know if you want to chime in. Oh, the baby crying.
She just fell off the couch because she was jumping on it. So give me 2 seconds.
We got a couch jumper. And it fell wrong one time, and almost he got hurt. And he remembered because the next time I saw him on the couch, when it was time to get off the couch, he kind of slid down real easy and careful. Like I said, oh yeah, you remember now.
Right.
Don't be jumping on the couch, baby. It's not good for you. I don't know. We got these acronyms and they're floating around. Anyone want to take a stab at what is the acronym? What does it mean? Let's do it that way.
I know the IEP because we have to like daily check those. So when students are, new to me, I have to go find out if they have IEPs or 504s. So the IEP is like the individual educational plan or something like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. That means that child has like certain things that has to be done to help them learn, or like they either get extended time, or sometimes they have to have 504 they get a timeout to calm down. Like that's like a behavior thing. Or they need special sitting closer to the teacher, or you have to speak louder. They have, a ear hearing aid, so they have to sit closer, or they wear glasses, so they have peripheral seating. And so that's what you're looking for in a child's IEP. Okay, how do I differentiate their learning in my class? Because if I don't do that, then the parent will have a problem, and then the school can get sued. So that's why it's important that we adhere to the students' IEPs and 504s.
I wish I had door prizes since we were talking about incentives. I should be giving door prizes. I don't know. Just put the Cash App in the private message. I'll send you a Cash App. But so you're right. And IEP, I knew it because in grad school, I ended up taking. I took a SPED track. Here's why. And it's not me saying that I discredit special educators, but I feel like it's so much in it that I didn't think that was where I needed to go as a band director until I'll talk about until I entered the classroom and I was in grad school and I had all of the school's IEPs in the band room. I'll tell y'all about that drama. And it's only drama because of what did not accompany students with the IEPs. So I'm putting it in the chat for viewers so they know, or if somebody go back and read the transcript, they got information, because I feel like that's what we should be about a little bit, to the best of our ability. So it says the IEP individualized learning plan. The purpose of this guidance is to assist educators, parents, and state and local educational agencies in implementing the requirements of Part B of the I.D.E.A, Individuals with Disabilities Act. So an IEP is a document. I'm gonna hold up this notepad for my people who are just tuning in. IEPs is, say this is a student, has their name somewhere there, their parent information, and it might be this thick. And you are expected to read it. I ain't gonna throw nobody out under the bus, but most of us only read like the first 4 pages. And it has like what the student's disability is. It might have like demographics and test information, or what type of accommodations or modifications you might need to make in your classroom. That is for one student. So if you are an educator, you're a music educator, I tend to believe we see more of the IEPs in our classes than I don't know. I feel like we see more. What about you, Jennifer? Do you feel like you, as a music educator, get more IEPs?
Definitely. Well, I don't have as much this year, but I have like 4 total, surprisingly. But previous years, it was like I had a notebook. I keep all my IEPs in a notebook and 504 plans and all that good stuff. And it just became overwhelming because you would have to make, I had 3 students with not reading, but like vision. They were visually impaired. So I had to they gave me special paper to copy the music on. and that which in turn they gave me my own industrial size printer copier in my room just because of that. um so a plus came out of that. But when you're making copies, and you got to go and cut here and all this other stuff, so it's just really tedious work, because you really, some of those IEPs we don't pay attention to, because it's just like, oh, they're behavioral plans. But the ones that are more physical, um they're kind of hard to adapt to sometimes, especially when you're in a rush. Also, I had some hearing impaired students, and one girl had to have a hearing device in her ear, and I had to wear a mic, and it connected directly to her
Oh
hearing aid.
wow.
But I would forget that it was on, and and like I was doing like, it was so crazy. I'm just thankful to the Lord that she was just a really cool student, because there were plenty of times where I said some I should have said in my office, and she was like, she'll look in my, and because I had a window in my office, she'll look at me, she'll say, like, look, like, point to her ear, and I say, oh, you're right.
I'm
So,
glad she's a nice. Seems like she's a sweetheart.
right. No, so it was cool. It's really cool. But I mean, you just gotta make sure that you do those, because when you getting evaluated, sometimes they'll ask for your IEP or 504 folder, and see what accommodations you have for that class. So that can also be a part of your evaluation for the year.
So so that's important because, like you said, I feel like band directors, and the question is, what are these? And Shell, you just came back. We were talking about IEPs and what they mean and how they affect us. Basically, you have to adjust your teaching to that student based on what that paper says. And remember, it could be about this thick if whether you tune on now or later, and you're an educator and you just getting out there. If you didn't have education classes, you have no idea what this stuff is like. And so I'm kind of not for, and I know some people are gonna, this might be controversial pushback. Some people are not for, they're not for, they're kind of anti getting certified, whether that is feeling like getting certified is, not conducive to what they really do day to day. But my day to day, I don't know about other people day to day. Maybe they got hired to create the best marching band ever and they get left alone. But my day to day is more of this type of stuff than actually teaching kids how to play instruments, depending on the year. It really is. And so if you are not certified, you haven't had these classes. You didn't have that SPED class. You didn't have that human development class where they talk about these things. And then you're held accountable legally for it. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether you know or not, you're held accountable. And if a parent gets squirrely about you not providing the individual child with what's on that IEP, it could go to court. You be sued. It could get ugly. And I know a lot of special education teachers who are duly certified. I have SPED stamp. I did it because most of my class was really looking like a special education classroom. Whether that was by choice, it was just what I was handed, and I just didn't want to slip up that much. Um, I don't know, and Shell, how many do you have a lot of IEPs here? Oh, you laugh, damn.
Because in elementary, yes, I teach like the entire school. So every child has one in school. I have one. Like, when I got to elementary, instead of a folder that I would keep all my students' IEPs or 504 in, it turned into a binder. And I mean, they were too many to fit in a file folder. So I had to start putting them in a binder. But what I was going to say was so cool about what we do as musicians. Some of those things that those students need, they don't necessarily need it in our class to do what they need to do, because our classes are hands-on. So I'm not saying I rarely refer to the IEPs or 504, but like with behavior, I do, because sometimes they just can't help it. But what I noticed with hands-on, those kids learn better hands-on versus reading it or listening to me, but they get to use their hands. So they never really lacked in that area where I was like, oh my God, you're not making it because you have an IEP. Those students, they flourished in music classes. Now, granted, when we have playing tests or whatever, I knew like if I had students that had like really low functioning where it was in their IEP, okay, play half a scale or play, going up or going down. I would shorten their playing test, or I would let them to play whatever speed they wanted to play. You try to do your best just to accommodate their ability. So if you just read it and do and work by that, you shouldn't be in any trouble. Because like our students, well, I know mine really wrote in class when I taught band. It was always playing. And so they would always ace in that area. And I would have some that couldn't play up to speed, like if we're doing a march. I'm like, okay, play at your tempo. And that was their accommodation. They got to play at their own speed, and if it was right, I feel like I was making progress with that student.
Well, at my current school, it is a performing arts school. Mm-hmm. Last year, and I haven't received them yet because I just started Friday. Right. I maybe had less than 5 last year out of I think I probably had about 120 students on my roster, which was the lowest I've ever had in my entire career. But this past school years, the high school that I left, I might have all of the IEPs in the school. In high school, which is very unusual because students are grouped by grade. They go to grade level classes and then they come to music classes or their arts classes or specialty electives by choice. And so to have, in some cases, some years, the entire IEP binder, which might have been anywhere from the lowest year in high school I had was 23 to a whopping 50. In band. So out of 100 and my biggest band was 120 students, I had up to 50 kids with a IEP or a 504 plan, which leads to another acronym, but it's a number. So that was high school, but elementary, middle, or I'll say middle school, because I only taught the middle school side of a KIPP school. One year, I had the entire 800 students or whatever, how many 100 students. And I had the entire binders. And in one of my classes, the highest ratio, I had 40 students. It was heterogeneous grouping, identified male. And they were 10. So this 5th grade, 23 of them were on an IEP plan out of 40. And 5 had 504 plans. That was a zoo. I'm just going to say it. It's not politically correct. It was a zoo because I did not have, the paras disappeared during my class period. So pretty much the majority of the class needed individual help. It's only one of me. It's all boys going through puberty. So when I said it was a zoo in every aspect, emotionally, helping and giving them the assistance that they needed, trying to teach them an instrument. We went to recorders and kind of like an org percussion class because instruments we just couldn't there wasn't enough support for me to do band with that class. It just wasn't, and it's unfortunate because a lot of them did end up in band. A lot of those students, and I know to date, they're like grown-ups, and I see them a lot when I go out in my day-to-day. But it was kind of egregious how they were just kind of thrown it in. What happened is it was a class of 20 and a class of 20. They split that class when it came to the academic core subjects. So those students were split. So the ratio was lower, much lower in other classes. But they put them together so they can all get their planning period and dumped them and you have to say dump them in music, because that class is going to be where they don't need any support. I feel like that's always the assumption. So
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with that, because I did notice that our parapros wouldn't come to me, band classes with those students. Now in elementary, they will, they do. You know, their parapros follow the kids wherever they go. So some classes I have an extra person, you know, and most I don't. But in band, yeah, they I don't remember. Now I did teach middle school and high school, so it may have been a stigma with those kids. They may have not wanted their parent to, to follow them. Because I will say, I had one student, he did not like his parapro, and it was very evident. It was like, you know, just he's okay for now. You could just pick him up when he's done, because that poor child could not function with that lady in the room. I was like, just come back, you know. But he did fine while he was there. But yeah, I get where you're coming from with that, because they were very seldom send the parapros to band class with those students. But I will say now the IEPs are digital, because I remember when the special ed teachers were, you know, they were like complaining about that. But once they put everything in the digital format, I think it made it easier from year to year to year to year. And so now our IEPs are digital. And I will say those teachers will only print out the students' accommodations. Like they don't give us that entire plan. They just give us the accommodations, what's the issues, and what needs to be done. And still, there's only 2 pages per student, 1 to 2 pages. Some students is 2 pages, no more than two. And I still have like a binder of 100 and some pages of paper.
right.
So I will say they have moved to the digital format, and it's very helpful, because they will only give us like the sheet with the accommodations, because that's really what
It's the
why
snapshot.
right.
So we got IEPs.
Mhm.
It can be various, but legally, it's legally students with IEPs cannot be restricted from a class in public education. And the reason I brought this up for music educators, especially band directors fresh in the game with no certificate or no education classes, I think sometimes we want the product to be good. And so I don't want to say we avoid recruiting all students, but I'm sure that if you don't know any better, you might turn a student away because they have a disability that might be quote unquote noticeable. And you might be like, well, you might not be able to do marching band. And there's a lot of universities, shout out to the HBCUs, that I'm starting to see a lot of diversity when it comes to students with special needs and different ways of learning or neurodivergent. I'm starting to see more evidence of inclusivity. But if I think about when I was in band, let's be real, our band directors would straight up be like, you can't do this. Like some of our old, we love them. We love them to death. But some of our older band directors, if they had to deal with the binder, and that binder affects college now. I'm a college professor.
Yes, it does.
And
They
I
can't
have
take their IEPs and 504s to the collegiate level. They
so
don't tell these kids that, but that is so important that they know
oh, but they start to know, because those things I posted in the chat,
that.
their parents are starting to be very educated in their child's rights, as they should be.
Right.
So college, I know somebody's gonna say, well, I don't really have to deal with this. I teach college. I'm on the upper echelon of learning. You don't have to accommodate. Yes, you do. And even more so on that level, because the Sue Daddy gets real. They get you with that lawsuit, and
Right.
your band is now named after that student. It's just like you better figure it out. So hopefully people watch this video, and my college professors, shouting out to y'all too. I have a student that I am currently working with in real time, like as of like every week during the summer. We have been working to get her her one-on-one help. They're paying me, so let me be clear, but they are paying me with funds from the university that is required to assist the student with their learning, or they would have had to go get someone else. But I'm fine with it being me because she's my student. I know her best, and I am okay with assisting her through her college education, in whatever capacity. But 504 plans. How's an IEP different from a 504? Jennifer.
Hey, 504 is more behavioral. So it'll tell you, see, I like IEPs more than 504s because it's less of a crutch. I like a lot of people use 504s to keep to as an excuse for your child to be bad. That's what it's turning to. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes if they say, well, they get 10 referrals. Let's go. Let's put them on a. Let's do a 504. No, that's gonna keep them there. They need to be an alternative school. They don't need to be on a plan. That's just gonna keep them there. Like there are some kids who are on 504s that just don't need to be in public school. Like not in general population. Point blank.
That's so
And that's that I feel bad about saying that, but IEPs for me are more of for students who really have disadvantages. And I feel like granted they might be on ADHD medicine and all that stuff. That is fine, but I don't think that needs to be a 504 plan. I think that is a crutch. I think the entire 504 is a scam sometimes because if you don't use it correctly, it's unlike IEPs. So I 100% believe in IEPs, but if your school is not doing the 504 plans correctly, basically what you're doing is just having a bunch of students who know that they can't get suspended because hey, boom, boom, boom. Now all of my 504s here in my school, I see what you're saying, are about behavior. And that's what I'm saying. If the schools don't know what the purpose of a 504 is, they'll just group it with behavioral. And that's what a lot of administrators do. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's how y'all's are at your school, but for me, IEPs will be more, this is what they need, blah, blah, blah. This is how you redirect them versus 504s. This kid can't get suspended because of this. Like, that's the way they present it to us. Is it like that at your schools?
So, this is good for all of us. So 504 plans are not supposed to be behavior specific exclusively.
But that's how they use them.
Into
A lot of times, that's how they use them as to. That's just the way when I hear 504, it make me cringe sometimes because, like he said, yeah, it's for like allergic reactions and all that good stuff. My students that have allergies, but they don't even show. They don't talk. They don't present it like that. They never present it like that. They always present it to us as if, boom, this child can't. They're on Adderall, so you can't suspend them. They never say the other side of it.
And you're right, like that presentation is important because it creates a stigma too. And I've heard, it is what it is. There's a scam in everything in American soil. Like that's just how it is. I've had parents request their child be referred to SST or referred to SST, which is Student Support Services. We're talking about acronyms, because they have a behavior issue. And I'm like, that's not how 504. Like, I'm always like, nah. Yeah, that's not. Like, I have to tell them, no, ma'am, because he can't go on a field trip. Now you want a 504 plane? Girl, stop. It happens. Like, it drives me nuts. Especially, I'm sure it drives true special educators nuts. I've only had to take classes because it was part of my grad work. But that wasn't the path that I thought I was going to be on. I just said, I'm going to be a band director. But Lord, the Lord showed me another way when you enter that classroom, Daddy. And Quan Mitchell said, schools are coding it wrong. Yeah, like it's happening because we gotta say it. We have to bring in money. We have certainly students who require special supports, and I believe we really should be thinking about all our students like that, like as individuals, period. Individuals with a number of things that can be challenges or beneficial to their education as far as public school goes. But I'm gonna tell you what the little trick daddy is. Students with these documents are worth more money to the school. Y'all know that, right? Back that you didn't know that? Oh, okay. Listen, if I disappear on Monday, like if social media happens and I just disappear, y'all know why. And Kwan's mentioned racism, but schools that have I won't even say low economic students, but because it's a scam across the board, no matter where you are. But sometimes students are referred to SST that don't really need SST and diagnosed with certain quote unquote issues because per pupil capital exists in public school. Per pupil capital is how much money that school receives for the individual child. In Baltimore City, and this is just a rough guess because I'm trying to remember, it's like 14,000 per student, or it was like 12,000 per student with no IEP or 504 plan or needing special support services. But if you have those documents, guess what? $14,000. So Quan put it in the chat, and it's real. A lot of Black boys, a lot of marginalized communities are misdiagnosed very often because the school system, individuals, we won't blame it on whole school systems, are trying to get additional monies in their school budget. And so misdiagnosing the children who often are the most disenfranchised because no one's checking like that is popular. And I'm saying that because I'm a mother of a little Black boy. And Matthew has a lisp. It's so cute. It's like cartoon. I mean, he sounds like I'm dreading the day his voice changes because he sounds like one of those TV kids. Like, he has he's very articulate, so he has big words with a lisp. And it's just the most darling thing to me. I wouldn't change it for the world. But it is big business. Quan said it. It's big business, y'all. Some of these babies got 504 plans, IEP plans, because they had an attendance problem and someone said that they can't get up in the morning, they're narcoleptic. And that ain't it. It's because their mama don't send their ass to bed on time. Sorry, baby. I cussed in front of baby. But that's what it is. It's big business and it pads budgets. Go ahead, Shell.
No, I'm sorry. I was reading Quan's comments. Like, do you really know somebody has a 504 because they're allergic to roaches?
Yeah, well, that's what they're for. Like, I've had students.
Roaches?
Yeah. Yeah,
Really?
so, yeah. Like, it get, like, for real. There's people allergic to roaches.
I didn't know
People are
that.
allergic to the sun. So this is important for marching band people. Y'all better read those papers because not all 504 plans are misdiagnosed. Sometimes it has something to do with something physical that is an impairment, but it doesn't affect their learning or ability to learn in a formal sense of learning. I'm gonna say it that way.
Right.
So we have some babies who are allergic to the sun and
or grass. I know I've had some that was allergic to grass, and so they couldn't practice on the field. If it was grass. I'm like, we're on the parking lot today, so you're in luck.
Or when the sun is out, or when it rains, or
right.
And this is not. And I know we throw that soft word out. I'm a peanut allergy, and I remember being in a time in public education where they didn't give a what I said about that peanut allergy. I got that sandwich on my plate, and it was like, "Well, give it to somebody else." I was like, "I can't even breathe around peanuts. I am that allergic to peanuts. Like, I can't even breathe around it." And they didn't care. They was like, well, you just being picky. You wouldn't be allergic to it if you were hungry. I used to get told stuff like that. I was like, nah, because I would die. Like I would die. And so, you know, it is what it is. And you need to, I'm glad they're digital because you can take this on field trips. Like Charles Green said, read those for your field trips, permission slip binders. Listen, future music educators, please hear this podcast, share it, share this, because I don't want to read about you in the news, because then they're going to crack down on all of us who are doing, quote unquote, the right thing by our job. And then it'll be something more that we have to do instead of just taking the reins and like doing the work yourself and learning about it.
Right.
Jennifer.
The Kwan's statement, the federal government will definitely come and investigate your school because it happens a lot more than what we know. Don't ask me how I know, especially when it's a lopsided. Well, when they'll ask for counties, diagnostics and all that good stuff. And if the state thinks about taking over a school, the first thing they check are those excess things like what demographics get suspended, who's servicing the students, all this good stuff. Because the first thing they do when they take over those schools are wipe out the teachers. So, especially the ones who may have mostly failing students, they'll put you. Then the thing is, what they'll do is they'll wipe out all those teachers and then go get Teach for America people and take over the school. That's how that works. So these schools better be careful with all of that. To his point, because it is a racial thing, especially when you have my majority leading the minority for the most part who don't understand the students that they're teaching, if that makes sense. So it happens all the time, especially like it was weird. Like I had a student whose mom was like, hey, we just moved here. Her information didn't come yet, but I know she has this, and this going on. They were like, I said, well, it was right before we went on a field trip to Six Flags. It was about 5 years ago. And so they were like, well, we don't have anything for her. If something happened, it's not on us. She got on the ride, she started feeling sick. I scared for my life, right? Because I'm sitting here like, this lady mama told me that this would happen, and me not having it in my book, my nurse didn't know what to do. She didn't know what the issues were. They told me don't worry about it. I don't care if the document is through the school or not. If the parent, especially like that was just an isolated event, but these students have health issues. A lot of them are misdiagnosed and some of them aren't diagnosed at all. They don't really listen to us sometimes when we're at the doctor. When we say something wrong, that's a whole nother story about how they treat us.
Right.
But, if a kid saying, hey, my stomach hurt, my head hurt, blah, 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 they might just say, oh, take some Tylenol, whereas someone else might say something and they'll go through all the scans and all of this and all of that, and then our kid mess around and collapse playing basketball. You know what I'm saying? So it happens quite frequently. We definitely need to advocate more so for our students. If we see the student having issues, like I told you last time, I had a kid who was having pain and it ended up being her appendix. But they kind of brush it off like, let's go sit down and go drink some Gatorade. No, this girl looks like she's really in pain. Advocate for your students. Even if you're an assistant or a middle school director, you're at the high school, go advocate for them because not everybody's going to take it. And it could be my motherly instincts.
But
someone really needs help. Like everything is not going to be documented. So you just have to use your sense of discernment too. And that led to certain people. It led to some kids getting, and I know y'all all probably had that, you bringing up something to the counselors or to the nurse, and it turned into them being documented, having documentation and going through the proper steps. So we just have to watch our students.
That's real, Jennifer, that because we know our babies, especially if you got band babies, we usually keep them longer than the typical teacher, especially when we talking about high school. Yeah, we keep them longer. So we know them better. Their parents are more intimate with us. And, you know, I've had parents say something in conversation. I was like, what? What? Why didn't you tell me? This is news. Like, ma'am, I needed to know this. Oh, or I've had teachers, I mean, not teachers, I've had parents say that they refuse to get their child evaluated because they didn't want them to have that stigma. Or they, like the school, my last position is one of those test-in schools. And there's always been a rumor around the parent community that if you're a test-in, if your child has an IEP or on a 504 plan or the other acronyms, we're going to, you know, just briefly tell you what they are so you know they exist, they won't get in because it's selective. And charter schools have been accused of, at times, really refusing spots to students who are on IEPs or 504 plans or receives support services because it requires more of that school financially, which is why that per pupil dollar is higher for a reason. It's supposed to be to assist with support services. We know that's not always where they put that money, but that's the case. We got two more acronyms. IOP. I wanted to talk about this because not all plans, individualized plans, are for students who are neurodivergent in the sense of with a deficit or something that impacts their ability to learn without accommodations and modifications. IOP, my son's on an IOP, individualized learning plan. My son's on an IOP because he's brilliant. So where we used to identify students, and some districts do, some states still do, as gifted and talented or talented and gifted, or E.D.E.A, educationally gifted and talented, advanced placement. My son was identified as advanced placement in the first grade. And I had to fight for that because he's a Black boy. I'm just going to say it. I got told some stuff that almost made the mom and me really come out and really go to another level with a teacher. One was that they didn't want to accelerate him a grade because Black boys slow down once they get to the third grade. This teacher said this out her mouth. I was like, you're sending home sight words and he's reading chapter books. Please do something different. Like, he was in kindergarten. He could read chapter books in the kindergarten. I don't know why. I don't know how. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say that most times when those kids, like your son, they become behavior problems because they get bored. And so if they haven't been identified as gifted or, you know, highly intelligent, and you're not challenging them, that's how that leads to that. And then, you know, it kind of snowballs and they go into the negative. Whereas if we had addressed that and planned effectively, he would have snowballed in a positive area. He wouldn't have been a behavior problem because he was always being challenged with rigorous coursework. You know, they always talk about rigor.
Yeah, until it don't look like the kid that they want to accept rigor from. And I was afraid that my son, I always joke, I say he's just going to be the one who cures cancer or build a bomb. And because, like you said, if that intellect and that neurodivergency, because it's still neurodivergent, seeing the world completely different. My son is always seeing the world completely different. I said he's probably going to wreak havoc. He's going to be manipulative because he's smart enough to be manipulative. And I watched one action from him that said, I have to push. And it was a fight to get him tested. It took months in the first grade to get him tested. And then they accepted him to be accelerated. That was the first thing. They accepted it accelerated because he had tested before. But then it was a push. The teacher that he got transferred into the class, because I wasn't banging with that other teacher with that nonsense. She said he's still in the top 1% of his class. He's still capable of doing all of this stuff without me being in the room. That's what she said to me. Like one of those off the record, she said, he's been skipped in his grade and this still isn't enough. I'm referring, and this is where being a good teacher is, I'm referring him to be tested for talented and gifted. And they put him through the ringer. First, it was the social emotional. They wanted to make sure that he could handle being in a higher grade. Just because you're smarter here doesn't mean you're developmentally ready to be around older kids. And he took all the tests, the Colgate or something like that. I think the OSAT. He took all of these tests. I know I had to learn all this stuff because I was always fighting to get him tested. And it came out, he tested in a 96th percentile of all of kids, I guess, in America. Like they group them by like a lot of the state tests and stuff. He's like still in the top 96%. So he was still like what the teacher said was accurate. But if she hadn't said that, I would have just been complacent with him being in a higher grade. And I watched him one day do something in his kindergarten class where I said he has to be somewhere where the kids are a little more evenly matched. At least the content, not necessarily the kids, but the content is engaging, because he tricked all the kids in the class to give him like the crayons that he wanted out the box. I watched this. I said, I'm gonna sit at this door and watch this little boy. And I watched him manipulate kids like, oh, well, just, you don't want that color. This color, like he had a whole defense about why these colors matter. He just wanted the colors that he wanted. And I said, you need out. So there's IOP, individual learning plan. So if you do have gifted children, especially Black boys, they're under tested for this because we don't know. And then individualized family plans, which sometimes is a plan for the entire family. So I'm gonna put that in chat. But I'm gonna go to the next question because we've been on this one. And thank y'all for y'all. It's expertise even by just being in the classroom. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes we feel like, well, I'm not an expert. Like it's just, you learn the acronyms in year one, and you just kind of, even if you don't know them, least restrictive environment means there is no such thing as those trailer daddies where we used to send, or the basement of school where we used to send kids who rode a different bus and all those jokes that we used to have. It is what it is. No, least restrictive means that students with support services, special support services, are included in the general population. So we got some older educators that be like, why they in here? Because they should have never not been in this class. Let's start there. But that's a whole nother tangent. Are we being inclusive to all people? And when I say people, students, are we being inclusive to all students? And when I say inclusive to all, I mean in every acronym that you can think of and what that acronym stands for.
I was gonna say, I think I am. I don't want to say I'm gonna speak for myself, but I think as band directors, we will, because you never. I don't know, like for me, as always, someone that was odd or different was always, to me, could have been a genius. And so I would always like to try them out. I'm like, okay, let's see what you can do. And, like I said, just whatever that student could bring to the plate in their ability, that's what I would accept. I wouldn't say, hey, you need to run 10 laps just like everybody else, or I need you to march 8 to 5. If they couldn't keep up, okay, let's take a bigger step maybe. Because I've had a student that was a small person, and he couldn't march at 22-inch steps, but so I had to adjust the way I taught him how to march. I said, take bigger strides, take bigger steps so you can keep up with the line, or put him on the inside of the pinwheel so he could be the one to take the smaller steps. But I feel like in music we accept everybody, and that's just how I feel. I think, I've never turned a student away unless he's been in there or she's been in there and their behavior was a safety issue for everybody in the classroom. That's the only time I would turn a student away. It didn't matter what they came to me with. We have a place for everybody in band. That's just how I feel. I don't know about him. But if they don't feel like they should, because you never know, like you could have that next Radio could be a genius on the bass drum, or
Mhm.
a clarinet or flute. You just never know. So
Yeah.
don't don't count them out until you try them in your classroom.
Yeah. You can be gifted and need support services. My son is one of them. He has a list, but he's brilliant. So whereas he could benefit maybe from some speech therapy, and they decided that he didn't need it because he still is very articulate. And his kind of came from how his teeth grew in. So they kind of feel like it's not really going to change. And I was like, oh, well, okay, then I understand him. He sounds so darling to me. So I want to keep it. I'm everything that's different isn't bad. Jennifer.
Let me start by saying this is my very first year ever out of my 10 years where a student and I and their parents had to agree that band just wasn't for them. Like, I had a student, and he's such a sweet kid, but he's had like four strokes. He had like four strokes before he was 3. Such a very sad and unfortunate thing. When he wanted to play the drums, but he just physically couldn't hold the sticks. Like, he couldn't control his movements. He could walk fine, but like everything was real jerky. Like, he has no control. And he wanted to hold one of the drums. Like, we put getting ready for football games. So we do middle school football games, and we gave him a drum. We accommodated him the best we could. So we gave him a drum on the regular concert drum on the stand. He was like, I want to wear the one like everybody else. The percussion instructor was like, I'm gonna put it on him so he can see that it's a little bit too heavy. Put it on him. He instantly like hit the floor. Like, it broke my heart. And he was like, I think it's time for us to talk about another class. Like, he ended up going to art, but he's still our band manager. So he'll travel with us. He'll do everything with the band. When we do concert band, I let him come back and do things like coming and playing like auxiliary parts. You know what I'm saying? But as for the class, the administrators and I and his parents all agree, and him agreed, that as far as being in the class, he would rather be in art or PE or something different, but in the spring, and after like our little football 3 games, he'll come to me Mondays, Wednesdays, and then he'll go, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that, and he'll play auxiliary parts. So that was the first time I ever had that happen. Now, as far as pronouns, that's a whole nother stuff.
Hold on. We're gonna hold on, LG, because
Okay.
we gonna go to that.
Let's talk about inclusiveness with cultures. We gonna play everything. We gonna play everybody. Every one of my concerts, I'm intentional about programming, and I explain to my students why. And we're not afraid. It's open discussion. We talk about it all the time. We talk about, like, it's almost a joke. Like, one of the kids say, and I have a very mixed group, very mixed, and they'll say, is this a piece made by an old white man? And I was like, no, not this time, guys. This is about, it's a joke now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a subject you should be afraid to talk to your students about. Like, because they understand the injustices. They're not dumb. They see it. So if you talk to them about it, they'll be more intentional about bringing those type of pieces to you too. I see Quan talk about male dancers. I know Georgia Man's Band had one, and it was a big rave on the HBCU page. And yeah, I just didn't see the problem with it. A dancer is a dancer. We have males that play the flute, or these gender specific things that people like to say. Um, but what is the difference? You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't see where the problem lies. I think sometimes it's more so the male or female too, because there's some women in there that were hating on the boy. That's their insecurities. They just need to become secure with themselves and put their egos to the side and recognize talent. Talent is talent. I don't care who you are.
Talent is talent.
You just gotta sit back and say, that boy good. Like, literally, like, because he could dance. And I just felt really bad for him, because it's like, we're openly making a joke about someone's passion, you know, and it's just it could burn the flame out of that person for the love of their craft. So we have to be careful because you never know who the next so and so might be. Like you said, Krystal, we don't know who we teaching, you know. So you have to nurture and foster that within your groups.
And I'm glad we brought up the cultural thing, because when we say all, we've talked a lot about the student support services side of education. We have talked about IAPs and 504 plans and different things that are covered by the Disabilities Act that I want to say was 1975. Let me see if I can spit my degree a little bit, which was federal mandate that we are including all people in, especially in education, but it affected everything from having ramps in front of public places and having access to braille, to lights. I watched all of these things unfold kind of as I was in grad school, like how inclusivity started to be more of the norm versus, you know, teaching the person who has atypical needs being ignored, and they just have to fight for themselves, to now society having this mandate. And Biden passed the executive order, if you don't know, in 2001 about diversity, equity, and inclusion, since that's where we headed. I'm putting this information in chat because if I was going to use this platform for anything, it was going to be for music education in all facets. So if you know some people, get their behinds in here, like send them a link, even if it's, you know, offline. But that executive order had two goals: advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. So federally, and it trickles down to states. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility through the federal government. That meant anything that's considered federal property is under this mandate. This is just passed in 2001. Of course, there were other acts like the I.D.E.A, which is the individuals with education. I'm tripping over words, but the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is the mandate that forces, and I don't want to say force, but I have to be honest, forces public education to accommodate people with atypical needs, atypical or quote unquote not the norm. I feel like if the majority of people have individual needs, which is all of us, then it's not atypical, but we're just using that for the standard. So are we going to talk about male dancers? I think Jennifer just said, here's what I've heard. I've heard people complain about male dancers. I look at it like church. Are you complaining when the choir director, and you know their lifestyle, has the greatest sound in choir? Is the pastor really sitting them down? No, they're not sitting them down because they put butts in seat. So I might keep that energy. If you're good, you're good. Jennifer said it. If you're good, you're good. When we talk about attire, let's not just talk about attire for the men then.
Well, that would be my only issue. With a male dancer, I feel like he should be dressed appropriately. I don't feel like I should put him in the same outfit I would put the dancer in with the. I'm thinking about like the majorette, the bodysuit, like not with the legs, but like the bathing suit. I feel like if he was on the team, and just like a male cheerleader, they have their outfit, and then the female cheerleaders have their outfit. They're not all dressed alike.
And I agree. we control attire. So when people say that as an excuse, I'm like, but you, the director, control the attire. You do know, like, don't we? I mean, I know I do.
Yeah.
I know sometimes the dance line would come to me with that magazine and be like, I'd be like, no, no. That maybe if you pair that with this, yeah, maybe something on the other side that covers down. I don't want focus to be on your Yahoo and your Googles because you in high school, especially when it comes to high school. So I think about it like this: the appropriateness of attire, especially when we talk about age. I control that, especially as a public school teacher. So if I'm not going to nag at them, if I'm not nagging at them over here too, I don't think you should. I want to keep it even. This is the attire everybody's going to wear because this attire is attire that's not going to have my principal calling me on the weekend talk about where'd y'all get that at? Because I've had my principal. She was like, they can't wear that. They can't wear that. And of course, there's a lot of looseness with it, but even women's gymnastics revamped because they had some situations. And I never think that attire is why you can't control yourself, but they thought about it. We noticed how some of the attire got more and more cut closer and closer. They went through years of Olympic attire. And whereas the men's was always still kind of covered from head to toe in a way, the women's got worse and worse. And so if we're going to make attire the issue, let's make attire the issue. Like, not whether or not I want you dancing. Like, I'm going to make attire the issue. Donaldson said if they're male dance and modern dance, contemporary or ballet, why not HBCU dance teams? Because we're not there culturally. Let's be honest. I don't know. What do you think, Jennifer? We're not there. Not completely. We're being forced to be there.
I went to FAMU. We didn't have dancers, so my opinion kind of won't matter because of what was ingrained in my spirit. I mean, this is not a good question for me. Now, as far as my school, do I want us to have dancers? I respect dancing and dancers as an art. Do I want it with the FAMU Marching 100? No. But that is my personal opinion. Y'all can attack me all day. I could care less. But
that's also your school.
That's not our thing. It don't even fit in our show. Either way, that's neither here nor there. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother topic for another day. But now, if your school has dancers, you got to be all inclusive. If that's what it is, you got to do it. Like if y'all have them. See, we blocking everybody. We don't care if you man, woman, alien. You ain't coming over here and being no dancer. All right, we just gonna block everybody. But if you got, that's like me saying, well, we went through, I think it was 2008. I can say we were all inclusive. That was like probably the biggest band we had at FAMU. If somebody quit, we go get them, or somebody had some issue, they couldn't go get them. They left, go get them, like we were literally all inclusive. We were one band, one sound. Like, no, you're going to be here type thing. But in that in a dancer realm, I do feel like it, like he said, it is modern dance. It's an art. It's all that good stuff. Bring them in. Let them come. That's weird to me and that shows us that it's a lot of men out there that's little freaky old men that don't want no boys around in their little periods. So it's a lot of times when you watch these videos and these little band, I be trying to look at the band, and all you see is they trying to zoom in on a little cootie cat. And I don't want to see that like all the time. I don't mind you showing them, and I appreciate it because I do them 8 counts in my shower, honey. But don't zoom in on private areas. Don't stand there making derogatory comments. Don't sit there and get your rocks off on these 18-year-old girls, because remember,
or younger,
18 or younger. It's just strange to me. Now, I do have a problem with the attire because the little gymnastic girls with can wear one thing, and then we were kind of like when Serena wore her outfits. It would be the same as some of the little white girls, but Serena got a body, a BAWDY. She got a body, right? And she would wear the same thing but get negative press. So it is a double standard between our cultures too, with attire and all that good stuff. But as far as the males in there, that's just stupid and it's dumb. And if you're gonna get rid of one, get rid of the whole thing. If you got a problem with it, just don't have them. You know what I'm saying? At all. That's my thing.
That's a good point about black bodies in things versus other bodies and things. Because I remember getting that speech as a teacher about appropriateness. And I can honestly say, I perceive, I may not be correct, that people are quicker to make comments about me versus I would watch the young 23-year-old Becky with leggings and a t-shirt on at work. And I'm like, you ain't saying nothing to Becky. Becky got on leggings, but me with leggings on. And I don't wear, if I wear leggings, it's because it's the wintertime. And then I wear a sweater that comes like all the way down to, those sweater dresses. Like in that sense. But Becky would have on her little t-shirt like she had the gym like with me and leggings. But is that more okay? So yeah, that is a good point. Jennifer brought up about attire with black bodies. Dancing is not something that's ever been segregated. It's just it's correction. It shouldn't be segregated. That's just my opinion. All those other issues, you can make accommodations and modifications to attire. You can make accommodation modifications. If you, the band director, with all that power and that budget, those uniforms are getting approved. So you approve whatever so everybody can be on the field. That's what I'm saying. You make that modification. And in that sense, it is your program when it comes to the appearance of the ensemble. As long as it is not restrictive or what I call excluding people just because you just don't want them there. Plain and simple. Cultural diversity, but repertoire. This is gonna be interesting with HBCUs. I feel like we've always kind of played everything, but there's some things that we're not doing. In my opinion, I don't know. Ain't sure what you think.
I mean, I can't. I don't even keep up with what's out there anymore. I don't even listen to regular radio. I don't watch band videos, so I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be one to. I don't have anything to share.
Well, we're not talking about current. We're talking about like Quan mentioned. There's some questions that Quan put because I don't want to. We addressed the male dancer.
Well, Krystal, I say this: the white bands play Omar Thomas and think they just coming to the cookout, but that's not my thing. They'll play Omar Thomas and Kevin Day, and they're the blackest bands ever. Look at us, we're great. Or they'll play Julie Giroux and We Love Women. So it's like we have. If you're going to be inclusive, it doesn't mean just one time. It's not just a one-time thing. So you can have a inclusive concert one time a year. But if you only do it for that one concert, is that really inclusive? So I think that's where we're dropping the ball because I've done it once. And I love, like, I write and I talk to Omar Thomas all the time. We're always talking on Messenger. We always communicate. And I'm so happy that he broke down those barriers for them to understand that, hey, we here. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was a gateway for so many people to get their music played. So I tell them all the time. But it's just so many more people that's out there that don't get their music played. And he does a great job. And some of these other people that are on these platforms they do such a great job with boosting them up. Randall Standards does a good job with that too, because he has a lot of them under his umbrella of music. He has a lot of minorities and a lot of, minorities as far as, ethnicity and all that good stuff. And he has women and all these good stuff. That's like he literally talks all the time about inclusivity because of who he is. And I guess, the good old boys didn't accept him for so long. He had to find somewhere to belong, and he belonged with us. So now he like rise for minorities a lot. He does that a lot, and I appreciate it. But if you're going to be 100% inclusive, you got to be intentional about it, and you have to be, and it takes a little time because you have to dig to find some things. There are websites out there that has these different composers and music and all that good stuff, and you just got to look for it. You just have to be you have to be intentional about your programming. That's all it is. Some people just, and then get it linked to your state list. That's the problem, is that our state list doesn't have anything on it that's written by minorities. And when you have to get ready for a festival for 3 months out of your 9 month, and then you playing some holiday tunes, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have a lot of time to play all this stuff. You just usually do it for your spring concert. Stop. She's trying to ride her 4-wheeler and it's stuck. So you just hear her wheels spinning.
Oh, she's spinning in the mud.
Yeah, but just wait, baby. But you'll just hear these things on spring concert, and and so what I tried to do when I was on the music selection committee in Georgia was I tried to get these people to go and ask for these different pieces to be accepted. You know what I'm saying? So we had a rubric in Georgia, and I would say, hey, I think this piece would be good for this. This piece would be good. And I would just say, hey, go request this one, right? We have to get these songs on our list. And I mean, my state goes by the NBA list, and that ain't inclusive. That National Band Association list is about as dry as 1942. So they don't have any up-to-date, quote-unquote, music other than those prime time people.
So what's crazy about that, like, I'm the large ensemble chair now, and I really wanted to be the large ensemble chair for our MEA, because a lot of people don't know that you can have stuff included to the list. The process looks different in every state, but you don't have to just sit there and take that old dead white people list. We have a whole committee, a diversity committee of people committed to looking at the list annually and putting in and reviewing music and adding to the list and taking away. Because if I see First Symphony in F one more time, or Host in his first suite or his second suite, come on, there's more music out there. There's just more music. But a lot of people say they don't go to festivals. They don't go to LGP or MPAs or festival adjudication. They don't go because they don't like the repertoire that's there. When it comes to marching band, though, I feel like we control a lot of that. Like, when it comes to marching band, and a lot of Black schools notoriously or are way more diverse than white schools. Sometimes that is, than PWIs. That has always been our thing, where we can play more, and some of the white schools are catching on. You hear a neck, they wear a neck out. It's about 40 years old now, but I guess better late than never, I guess. It still be missing some hot sauce and the experiences that come with the real true nature of that song, which is a whole nother issue. But as far as diversity and repertoire, I put the link in the chat at some point. Institute for Composer Diversity, Todd Stahl, I think his name is. There's a couple people who work on that started that network where you can get information about music. Keita asked a question: how many of those songs will fit? All of them. You're a ranger. I'll write anything. We kind of have been trained to think that, and I get it. HBCUs is our platform when we had no platform. But even in our own platform, it can be very easy to be complacent with what it is that we do. But if we know music history, we did it all. So we're actually not even doing a service to ourselves when we omit things, because if we learned what we were supposed to learn in undergrad and grad, unfortunately, I didn't have a class in the history of Black music until grad school. But that class taught me so much. I was like, we should be playing a lot more stuff than what we're playing, but we've, something gets taken from us and then we write it off as being white. My band director in college, he started doing during our band show like whole sets that were diverse. And he started out with, Freedom, Beyonce's Freedom. And then he did I found out a lot about Latinx artists, Afro beats, all this stuff fits. And a lot of the music we listen to that's popular music has influence on it anyway. We just have to be willing to go out on a limb. I think if you're at a popular HBCU, you can play anything. I think if you're at a smaller HBCU, you're under scrutiny and you're kind of forced more into the typical box. But I say screw the box. That's how I feel. I've always felt like if anybody see, I'll arrange anything. If I like it and if I think it's a good band song. And I think I'm creative enough to make it fit. So I think the repertoire thing is a big issue, Jennifer, because people they're opportunists. Just plain and simple. They do it so they can check a box. Quan said it. Jennifer, you said it. And it does require you to know a lot of repertoire. And sometimes we're very limited in what we know about repertoire in a sense. Not sometimes our fault at all.
I would say your point. Tennessee State historically has the most diverse book. That was probably the hardest school for us to get prepared for because you never knew what they were going to throw at you. And that's like a big joker right there. Like, I don't think schools realize, like, we could hear on the radio, oh, somebody going to play this, they going to play that, they going to play that. But they would hit you with some Latin music, they'll hit you with this, they'll throw 5 marches at you. It was just the fear of the unknown was TSU for so long. Like they you just didn't know how to prepare, and it made you think outside of the box. Yeah, and I was just talking about TSU. TSU they do a lot, and everybody has to do a lot to prepare for them. I would say that we could play anything and it would be accepted. I know we play I'm Not Gonna Write You a Love Song and you ask for it. And them little people in the crowd was like, yeah, I like that song. What's that? I don't know. But if somebody else would have played it, they would have been like, why y'all playing this at my school? Like Jack could stay or could play anything. Like they just played, what was that? My daughter listened to it all the time.
Gracie's Corner. Someone just posted it. I heard it today.
They just played Gracie's Corner. If someone else, like I said, smaller would have played a Gracie's Corner song, it would have been like, really? We could go play the theme song for Coco Melon. And they would say, oh, the 100 playing Coco Melon. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you are absolutely right. Krystal, it just depends on the messenger sometimes. So we could take, some of these larger schools could definitely take the reins with exposing our crowds and training our crowds, because we do have to train our crowds to accept diverse music. Now, when I say that, what is the gentrification of our music? Like, if I hear swag surfing and if I hear neck, big balling, what do you know who Kimo Sabi is? Like what is big? Like, if I hear that stuff one more time, I'm gonna go crazy. Like,
that was a social justice song, and they have no idea.
It's like I just listened to it, and I'm like the middle school director was like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna have so much." And I don't know if it was a shot. She said, "Oh, we're gonna have so much fun playing each other this year because we're gonna play some of those, some of those songs." I was like, "What songs?" Right? Like my dumb stuff. I already knew what she was talking about. I just need to say, "What songs do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, we have neck," and they gotta whisper it when they say the names of those songs. Honey, we have neck, and we have big ballin', and I'm saying like, circa 1999. Oh, you on there? Okay, you Cash Money
That
taking over.
thing's so old.
Okay. Okay.
I was a kid. I was a teenager when this stuff
Vice
came out. We
versa.
talk about being relevant. Some things are just old, too damn old to be like. We have some other music since.
Like
Vice versa.
you can have standards. So you can have each school has a standard. So fam, you're gonna play SOS. Fam, you're gonna play Backstabbers. Like we're gonna Jack State gonna play Get Ready. Like these schools are gonna play these different songs. Southern used to play Getaway all the time. Like they're gonna play these certain songs, but those are their staples. Don't you come here.
Don't
Like
you?
you're gonna belong by saying we're gonna have a good time today, guys. We're gonna play a little bit of Vice Versa. Sit down.
It gives it. What it gives is a sense of in. It's almost mockingly, if that makes sense. It's like this is how we think you sound and what we think you do, instead of what it is that we actually do. And it does kind of come off as insincere in your cultural diversity. I think, Jennifer, that's what you really like. If I could add, it is insincere. It's hokey. It's mockingly. It's like blackface for music. It's like this is what we think y'all do: shuck and jive and shake your behind. But it's not really the whole inclusivity of our culture. Condescending. Thank you, Keita. I was trying to find a word. It is. And that is not what we mean by composer diversity. That's not what we mean. We don't mean you going in our, it's like stealing a playbook. In football, this would be like egregious, right? If you just strolled up to a football practice, watched all their plays, and then on Monday, I mean, you might win a game or few, but eventually you just look like you're not creative enough to create your own.
But we open the door for that with these joints, whatever's with these PWIs at these
Oh, the
games.
money games, that's a whole nother.
That's not even that's you're opening the door. Like I'm not even gonna name the school we played, but I felt like I felt like blackface almost. Like it felt like that because as soon as we got off the bus, we were they were like, oh my gosh, I can't play with you guys, and they started like dancing. I was like, hold up now, like it make you feel some kind of way because you got these people that's the same age and they looking at you like you just here for entertainment. But we black people are labeled as entertainers, for the most part. They can never label us as physicists and all this good stuff. We're just solely entertainment. But when we got there, they were like, they Dr. White said we're just gonna play the national anthem and one spirit tune together. Cool. They were like, oh my gosh, are we gonna do a dance routine? We're gonna dance like y'all. And they would just make it almost felt like, like they were doing being condescending. Some of them, I'm sure, genuinely wanted to dance and do all that good stuff. But you're not gonna come to me and say that no, we're gonna run these marches first. We'll show you a dance routine after you run these 15 marches like we got. You want to run 15? How many you got? Let's do that. Like it's almost like it's easy to do what we do and we can't do what you do. So, and I think our band director felt that because he said, let's warm up. And we played none, fam, we had a 30-minute warm up. We did not play any of our warm up. He was like, in Storm and Sunshine. We was like, huh? Okay. And he was like, our next warm up will be Rolling Thunder. Our next warm up will be blah, blah, blah. He ran literally every march we had in our repertoire. And he said, okay, y'all ready to dance? Okay, let's dance. Wait, before we dance, let's play Elsa's. Okay, boom, shut them up. And I think they realized what they did because and how it made us feel. And they after that, the next time we went up there for the 2 years later for a money game, there was a whole different vibe entirely. That they had food laid out for us, honey. They had we had bonding icebreakers, and they didn't. And we still did the traditional stuff, and we did like a little 8 count routine, but no ma'am, they didn't come at us like that anymore. So we have to prove ourselves to majority all the time. And my mama always say you got to be 10 times as good to get half the credit. And I see that with all of us, and it's like we're talking about with The composers, you got that. It took one person to have that breakthrough piece for them to acknowledge Black people as composers, and that's sad. That
And
is
there's a
sad.
whole go to Composer Diversity Institute for Composer Diversity. Thousands of pieces, thousands for centuries. We're not talking like just Omar Thomas isn't the first. He's good. Kevin Day isn't the first. He's good. Valerie Coleman is not the first. We just y'all late to the party, and we're late to the party because nobody loves. The best thing about being the socially acceptable quote unquote dominant culture is you could very easily make people believe that you don't exist in certain realms, and we believe it. I talk to people all the time and say, well, that's white people or this. That's like you. And it makes me sad because everybody doesn't have the opportunity to have instructors and teachers that are going to teach them about more cultures than the one that's in the room, inclusive of being the Black culture. I teach at a predominantly Hispanic high school now. 90% of my students are Latinx. I have to learn their culture. I expect to learn their culture and not make my classroom all about my culture. That's not fair to them. That's ignoring what it is that they do. And she was having camera problems. Oh, poor baby. It looked like the rain.
Don't say it. Y'all got me saying it. All right, don't say that.
It's all about to come through the camera. But we got to get to it. The last part of that question is what, with a lot of debate, what Dave Chappelle got a lot of heat about, calling them the alphabet community. And we're talking about we're talking about the LGBTQA plus community and inclusivity. I'm going to be very transparent. I've had student teachers who are gender non-binary. I have my last student teacher was in the process of transitioning or had just transitioned. And this year, I'm going to have another student teacher that may be within that community. And the reason why they're being placed with me is because I've been identified as a culturally sensitive, inclusive classroom. I don't know if I deserve that title as much as I just want to treat people for being well. You know what I mean? I want to treat everyone the way I want to be treated. And I don't need a manual for that. Does that make sense? I think we overthink some things. You don't need a manual to be a decent, caring, empathetic human being. At least you shouldn't. And I approach all of the student teachers I've had with that lens. I see you, the individual in front of me is who I'm supposed to be making the best teacher possible. And that includes everything about you. This is not a disagree or agree about your lifestyle or how you view yourself. That's not my right. I just don't think it's that hard, but it is very hard. We hear a lot of people about indoctrination, and we've had people from various communities exist in education since the beginning of time. It was just quiet. It was supposed to be quiet. And we only accepted them in certain spaces. Like I use Black church as my example, because a lot of us can identify with that. But it just doesn't make sense. And I'm really, really passionate about this podcast because I don't want people to let what they believe influence how they treat human beings. I don't know. That's my take. Jennifer, what you think?
I have a student. Well, my district. I'm keep in mind I'm in South Mississippi, guys. So
Mhm. Yep.
I have in our county. If it's not documented, we cannot refer to them as the pronouns that they desire to be called.
Wow.
For example, I have a student now in the privacy of my own room. I'm gonna call them whatever they want to be called. But but if they're in front of their parents or something, I definitely ask like, this is something that you're doing, or is it something that you've included your parents in? Because um, some of the kids' parents don't accept it, and they don't want them to say anything in front. Don't want us to call them that, but in front of their parents. So I have a student that I call a different name, and he prefers to be called he instead of she. So I definitely I use his pronouns that he desires. But when I go to when they call him to the front office and the guidance counselor and all that stuff, they call him by his name, the born name and all this other stuff. And he just really gets really upset. And he said, "You're the only teacher that calls me by what I want to be called." And I mean, I feel bad because it's like it's not that hard to do. You know what I'm saying? It ain't taken away from your check. If he want to be called Tyler, call him Tyler. I don't care. Okay, whatever you want to be called, that's fine, long as it's not derogatory. And I put a little thing by their name to make sure that I remember. I put a little memo by their name. Nickname prefers to be called so and so. That I'm good with that. Like I mean, it takes a little practice. And I told him, I said, now you're gonna have to give me time to remember this. So if I mess up your pronoun once or twice or 3 or 4 times, just have patience with me. So and just correct me. I'm not gonna get offended if you correct me. And he was like, "Thank you so much, thank you so much." But I messed up. I worked the car riding line, and I was like, "Bye, Tommy," and he was like, he's picking up. His dad was picking him up, and I said, "Okay." The next day in school, I said, "So your daddy doesn't know?" He's like, "Yeah, my dad knows, but my dad thinks it's just a phase, so they don't accept it for what it is." And which is disheartening because you can see the pain and in his eyes, whether it's a phase or not, it doesn't matter. That's what they prefer at that moment. For example, I didn't like the name Jennifer. I hated my name. All of my friends had um, what we would call ethnic names, very ethnic names, and my name was Jennifer. And I was like, "Why my name got to be Jennifer?" And they used to talk about me, and they were like, "You got that little white girl name. Your name was born." So I told my parents, "My name is not Jennifer. You're gonna call me Wakiba." And they would call. They said my daddy was like, "What?" And I said, "I prefer to be called." Like, let me tell you, my parents call me that to this day. They'll call me, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate them looking back on it because that was a request that I had and they listened to me. You know what I'm saying? And I explained to them why, and they were like, "Okay." Boom, 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 boom. My mama told me that Jennifer was her favorite actor. Jennifer Elise was like, it was some TV show, and it was her favorite actress, and blah blah blah. But she understood where I was coming from. You know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate them now for saying, for really doing it, because so many kids are not accepted in their own home, and that's sad to say, but it is what it is. And I told the guidance counselor, I was like, they were like, you can't call her him. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm just gonna say, okay, go back to my room and call him what I call him. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not here to hurt anybody's feelings or to make them feel bad. I have this whole little thing about this being a safe space. And if that makes you feel safe, I'll do it. So yeah.
I think associating with a nickname is really, really more digestible. Unfortunately, we're at the stage where I did say in the chat that we're not there yet with a lot of things. It doesn't take much to think of it. Think of nicknames is how I approach it. Nobody who's my friend. So I'm saying it today. All of my life, anybody's my friend or family call me Chris. Nobody calls me Krystal unless they don't know that my nickname is Chris. It's always been Chris. I can't say where it came from, but I definitely prefer people to call me Chris than Krystal. It has nothing to do with how I see myself gender wise. It's really, it's something that has a lot of meaning from my family. It's a term of endearment to me. When my family address me, they say Chris. When they call me Krystal, I feel like you don't know me or I'm in trouble. Kind of like getting called your full government name. So it's not that hard. It's interesting how the legality is different in different states. Here, we had training last week. We must identify students by the pronoun that they articulate. And this is not age specific. This is K through 12 in my district. The only time there's a stipulation if parents are not aware, and then in the presence of the parent, we must refer to them as whatever their documented name says. But as far as in the classroom, we are mandated. And I hate to say mandated, but that's really what it is at this point. It's now law or policy. And my district has a lot of policies. Oh my God. It's like a text, like you could spend years learning just policies and memos that they send via email. But we don't get to choose. And it's going to be very difficult in, I would say, traditional style marching band. Because I think about like dancing in core style band, they have been all genders represented since the beginning of time, almost, when it comes to core style band, because they call them color guard, and their function is to add depth and color to the ensemble, and the gender never mattered. But it matters in traditional style band because the identity of the dancer historically came from a different place. Historically. That's not saying that things can't change or shouldn't change. It's just historically. I would not expect FAMU to all of a sudden get dancers just because we're trying to be more inclusive. No, they don't have dancers. That is period. That's not them not having dancers because they want to exclude genders or people and how they see themselves in the art form. They just don't have dancers because it never fit. But not having dancers and not having women in band like it used to be, that was exclusivity in its sense. And a lot of people confuse the two. The two are not the same. Having students identify as a gender or not a gender at all doesn't really affect the musicality of your program. And I feel like if we just kind of focus on the musicality of our program and the product, then you don't really care. I don't care who plays what. Is the part covered? Can you play the notes within your ability? That's the end of the conversation for me. So I just think it's funny that like I'm like the LGBT like whisperer for student teachers right now, and I'm like, this isn't really a teaching style that I've mastered. This is more me trying to treat people like human beings. It's not that deep to me. It's not that deep. And I'm not saying that seeing people as they are is light work. It's just not that deep to me. I don't know. And Shell.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I saw a TikTok video the other day. So I get how the teachers are having to include the students. But what advice would you give to a teacher who has different pronouns and how they look, and how would that roll over to their students? Like, how are they supposed to function?
What I tell my student teachers, because all of them have been not from what we consider the dominant culture behind gender. Mm-hmm. But I tell every single one, now I'm going to tell the one that's coming, I guess eventually sometime this year, the school year, if they come or not, and I'm happy to have anybody, I teach them persistence, patience, and product. Your job is to be a good music educator first. Right. I do not share too much about my personal. It's a choice for educators to share your personal. Sometimes I don't even really wear a wedding ring. That's not because I'm not happy being married. I love being married. It's just I play piano and it used to spin around and cut my finger. It just didn't mean I wasn't married. But I always tell them, one, be patient, because education behind this is lacking and slow. That's not saying, and I say that to myself as a Black person. Sometimes men, Black men even say something that I was like, wait a minute, be patient, but persistent in what it is that I want you to understand from me.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you, Keita. You were in the chat, man. Poco or Poco. I'm gonna start saying that. Thank you. I read that from, I forgot who posted that today. I think Baxter, a Stillman College director. Little by little, I tell him I might mess up. I might mess up. Please know it is not my intention to mess up. A situation that happened with my son this year. He has a teacher, or had a teacher that was gender non-binary. I knew it immediately, just because of like the language that was being used in the class. But the whole class got punished for something that I strongly felt was insensitive to children. They had a classmate that in the fall was being referred to or identified, or was, whether it was voluntary or not, as a girl. And then the spring, when they came back from winter break, had chosen to be identified as something else. The students were not informed. So like 10-year-olds would do, they called the student by their name, the name that they had been saying since September. And she took it as an act of maliciousness against that student. And I had to check them. I said, listen, if someone asks me, is this my natural hair color? I don't immediately jump all the way down. It could be. I mean, Black people carry all the genetic traits of everything. You can have blue eyes and be Black and it be natural. But I don't jump too over the board. And I think we're going to have a struggle. We're going to really struggle through this because there's so much hurt behind people and oppression. And there's so much hurt behind people where they've been marginalized that sometimes we think everybody is the enemy. And in that moment, the teacher thought that the students were being malicious, and they tried to, and I know my son, we've had this conversation one time. I said, people see themselves as how they want to see themselves, and it is our job to respect everyone the same way you would want someone to respect how you see yourself, period. That was the end of the conversation. He said, that makes sense, because he's grown up in a woman's band room, and he's been witness to kind of like people, why do you say that to you, mommy? It was like, girls can do anything. Why do you say it like that? And he was young, and so he's a little more aware, and I think this generation is. But she took recess or something away from the class, and I was like, that it is okay to meet people with education. Right. And then if they still have that fire and ferventness of being what I consider disrespectful and egregious, then that's when, you take the gloves off, so to speak. But I think we're at a place where I see a lot with gender. I see a lot with Black men versus Black women. It's starting to get an old where we're all marginalized, and we all take that same hurt and we attack each other with the hurt that we feel instead of using it as moments to teach each other. That's my poco on poco. I like that. Last question of the night. How often do typically developing students fall through the cracks of a least restrictive environment? LRE means least restrictive environment. There are no more trailers where kids go when they are not, quote unquote, the norm. Everybody's in the classroom. So some of y'all watching these band tapes, and you picking on the kid or the person that steps out with the right foot instead of the left, now we have to understand that that student might be from a neurodivergent landscape, and they're in the right place where they're supposed to be, but it may not look like what we have considered excellence in music. And it's going to be a delicate situation where people are talking about being competitive. I'll say when I go to MPAs, I give a snapshot of some things that they may see on the stage that might make it to the comment section, because I'm the educator. So I'm going to educate even the adjudicators. I was like, listen, the student right there on the end, yes, the flute player is back there with the tubas. That student is neurodivergent, and being in front of the ensemble was too loud. Yes, that student has on headphones on the stage. So before you talk about uniformity and you talk about appearance, leave that comment off the sheet for your own good. And I teach adjudicators, and I teach those people how to see my ensemble. It's not making an excuse. Someone accused me, he was like, you're trying to get sympathy. I said, no, I can't restrict their participation, and I won't, but you're not going to ding us because it doesn't look typical to you. So how often do these students fall through the cracks? Because I may be aware, Jennifer's reading, IEPs, and Sheila's reading the 504s of her whole school because she teaches all the babies. What's the name? Quan said, as women, do we feel like we're just a little bit more in tune because most of the directors are cisgendered male men in our job? I don't know. What do you think, Jennifer?
I know we all have those students who are who don't progress. Well, once you have more than one, they're not going to progress at the same time anyway. So you make those adjustments unknowingly, but those that are outliers are the ones that you may think cause problems, but this is how I've learned to handle that. So once I get the majority of the group on one page, I will break them. Hey, let's break off in sections today. So we'll do Tuesday, Thursday sectionals, and they'll work on. I say, this is what I give them specific instructions. This is what we're gonna do. Blah blah blah. And while they're doing that, I say, hey, so and so, come see me real quick, and we'll go through. Luckily, I don't have to do marching band stuff, but it's just like playing. We're doing like a lot of basics and stuff now. Tone, production, all that good stuff. So I will work with those students and give them basically like private lessons or small group lessons during that time. You can do that for marching band too when you break off into sectionals, because we do that quite often. When we break off into sectionals, you can pull that little group aside, or if you have an assistant or some help or the middle school director, get them to work with those students as well. So you always have help. People say, I'm by myself. Like, do you have a feeder? If you don't, I'm sorry. Like, there are programs that don't have feeders and don't have help. I get it. But if you do, utilize all of those people to assist, because it's because they're a middle school director, that doesn't mean they haven't been in marching band. So they can help you out a lot. I've just been lucky enough to always have like a staff of people to assist. So whenever they're in class, I would say, hey, pull this person, that person, that person. Cool. It's gonna take time. It's not a one day thing. Just pull them out one time and say, yeah, I helped them. They still don't have it. No, it's gonna take time. Sometimes to get them to where they need to be. But if you really believe in that student and you really care about their progress, you'll make the necessary adjustments to get them there. That's just my thing. I've always prepared or eyed the kids from the jump who I knew were going to have problems. So I changed my plans and lessons for them to not get too far ahead of them, but to also keep my top playing students engaged too. So you just have to find a nice little balance within your program.
And Shell, you still with us? Don't you come out here like the rain.
Yeah. I'm still here. I was gonna say, probably because we always want to feel included, and so we kind of always offer that to our students. We want them to feel how we don't ever want them to feel how we usually get treated sometimes. That we're being excluded. So that may play a part in why we are so inclusive of all of our students and their differences.
And even now, like we're preparing to go on a trip, and this is kind of different. My goal is to never leave a kid at home. Depending on, I don't care what your home situation is like, you going with me. Like I made it in my brain. I put it in my brain that every student in my program will go with me on this trip. So if and that's because of me not wanting to see some of my students not be included, and that's how some of them feel. Like some of them just don't have won't have a positive experience in anything other than band. So let's try to make it as positive as we can. They fail in every core class, but they just luckily got it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a student who said, "Man, you my highest grade." And I said, "What's your other grade?" They was like, "Man, look, I'm going to summer school, but I got an A in your class and I'm doing good." That was the highlight of their entire report card. And the fact that I wouldn't have known that student was failing every class because they put in all this effort for me. Sometimes some other courses and some other core teachers, they so worried about the test, what I'm saying, that they pull something to the side. Well, I already know they're going to not pass it, so I need to make sure these other ones are going to be. But I mean, we don't have to have that. They don't have to be. We have a little bit more flexibility to include them. So why not be that little portion of hope for those kids?
Right.
Don't just remember that these same students are hearing that same thing from sometimes they have 7 periods. 6 other teachers may be down in them, but you are the ones that are the positive light for them. So just always remember that.
I think that's important. Like, we know there is at least one time in our lives that we didn't feel like we belonged, or especially if you are from the Black community, we already know. And being Black and gay, being Black and lesbian, being Black and non-gender binary, being Black in anything Black seems like it's the rider to being marginalized. And when you add something behind the rider, it intensifies times 12. And so we know how it feels. We know how it feels. Whether, I remember being told I couldn't be drum major because I was short. That hurt my heart because I could march my ass off. Like, that hurt. That really, I was like, and then years later, I started seeing short drum majors, and I was like, I missed my time. But it does make you feel like, if I just been born in a different time. So we are that different time for our students. In the now, in the real time, we are a different time for them. And so when it comes to slipping through the cracks, I've watched students slip through the cracks, like a kid get called stupid in another class, pretty much. And then I'm like, I don't have problems out of that. What you doing over there? Like, I can send so-and-so to run the band. So-and-so can run the band without me and read the score like a pro. And you struggling. And I've had to go to other teachers' classes to kind of help them figure out a student. I was like, they're not just their heads down because they have a headache. Did you read their IEP? Did you read that sitting this close, you want them close because you think they're a behavior issue, when they don't need to be close to you because they can't see the board is actually causing migraines. So they're acting up because you didn't follow the plan. So I don't know. Unfortunately, black students fall through that crack completely. I've had students get taken out of my band class because they were not passing other classes, but they still need my class. They still need a fine art to graduate. It's like, you took them out of a class, they still need to graduate so they can focus on, like, 1 year they decided to give students who scored at a certain level in the high school a double period of math.
Yeah.
This was 90-minute classes, y'all. I would lose if I had to be in algebra.
We do that. We do double periods. We have one elective, and that one elective is me. So I try to make that little fun time, as fun as I can, of course, with learning, but it doesn't. I don't see how they do that. I don't think that's fair for those students. But hey, if it's
It's
a
not
remedial
really
class, if you have a class for remediation, you shouldn't have to do it for 2 periods. You should have effective teachers to get them done within that, for me, 50-minute class period. So you shouldn't need 100 minutes. You know what I'm saying? To get, that's absurd. I can't sit down longer than 10 minutes. So to be still, I just can't imagine what those kids go through. And then they come to me and be like, man, we call it Panther time. I had Panther time and blah blah. I said, oh, you had that back to back? Oh no, ma'am. Ain't no way. Like and they can test out of it. I don't know if your people could test out of it, but ours could. They will have benchmark tests and things like that, and they'll see where they are and they can test out. And I'm like, look, if y'all tired of this, do your best on this test. But some kids just don't test well. The test ain't made. But then again, let's not talk about that because these certification tests ain't built for us. So I mean, it is what it is. It's just, and teachers don't want to stay after school. You're absolutely correct, because sometimes I don't want to stay after, but I do, because we don't. It's the only time we can see our kids. So some teachers they'll beat the bell, like the bell ring, they call they gone, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us be there, and we spend that extra time. Like, we're conditioned as directors and as musicians to give as much time and put as much time into students and kids as possible to get to a certain product. So core teachers don't do that as much as we do. They also don't have a show every week. They got a big game. They got a big dance once a year. But we have quite a few throughout the year. So I think that's where we differ with that. So yeah.
And that's a good point. Like, we can't hide our F. People, I have a mentor teacher that told me, think of it like this. Students can't come in our classroom, get an F, and ball that F up, and nobody ever gets to see the results of what that F truly means beyond the grade. Like, we don't see, you can hear our F, you can hear our A. You know what an A plus group sounds like, and you know what an F minus group sounds like. And so because of that, we just have to be better at our jobs. I'm just going to say it. We have to be better at our jobs. We have to get a lot of things done with less resources, and we're not tested. And I don't want to be tested, because I feel like that's when we'll see a lot of inequity, and it'll become another thing. But it's 8:07. I think this was good conversation. Thank you, Anshel. Thank you, Jennifer, because new teachers, man, I pray for y'all. I pray for y'all, and I pray for anybody that's a new teacher post-pandemic, because the post-pandemic babies are different. They different type. It's different. We gotta love them and learn them what to do, but
I love my babies. I have no complaints. They've been on it, honey.
I love
on it. When I say they've been on it, oh Lord, we off the chain. I'm very proud of them.
So I put in the chat a D.E.I.A, I.D.E.A. If you didn't catch the acronyms in the title of the podcast, cheat sheet, new educators, those acronyms. They got some links. The links on the sheet. Click on it. Read a little bit about some things. Make sure you stay in compliance, because that special education stamp on my certificate. The reason it's there because I wanted to always be in compliance, because nobody wants to get sued. And it's nothing like learning a lesson when your money get hit. We don't want to learn those lessons, or your certificate gets snatched, or you got a parent who really knows their child's rights. And it's better for you to know before they make you know. That's how I look at it.
Before you stop.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anyone that is in a wheelchair in your program, you better make sure that when you request your buses, you make sure you have all of that taken care of. You make sure where you going has a ramp, and you make sure that other director understands that this is where your band needs to be seated and placed because of this. We just got in a lot of trouble for that because where we sat in the band, in the stands, it had no ramp and he had to sit at the bottom. This year they moved the entire band to the whole other side of the stadium because of that. Y'all, please. I'm begging you. Like, well, we didn't get in trouble per se. They just were like, this is what we're gonna do, because we did ask questions last year, but COVID, whatever kind of was over, was a precedence over all this other stuff. But now it's not. So this is what you need to do. Make sure they go on. You make sure you get those buses with a lift, because you can't say you forgot because you just ordered 9 buses. They're gonna give you 9 traditional standard buses. You need 8 buses and 1 with a lift. You need access, wheelchair access everywhere you go. If that stadium doesn't have wheelchair access, your band doesn't need to go. Like, you can't leave them at home. It is what it is. I'm sorry, y'all. We have to do that, and that's like, we have a game or two that we may not go to because we don't know where he would sit. So it's that serious. So make sure y'all take it very, very seriously too.
Agreed. Thank you for that, because that puts it now in the front of my mind. Ms. Davis, any last words?
I was just gonna say, jumping off of what Jennifer said, just to make sure, in addition to that, and also carry your binder with all your health forms in it. So, in case of emergencies. And just to be safe, I don't know if red dye number 9 is still an issue, but I never allowed my boosters to buy red Powerades or Gatorades. And so, for where I came from, it was just something in the diet that would make you sick. And so our band director never got it. And so I was like, okay, well, that's what we're supposed to do. Don't buy nothing with red. And they were like, why not? And I was like, just don't buy it. So those are only 2 things I wanted to add on there. That health binder that those parents fill out, giving their students permission to go on these trips, and just make sure you have all the nurse information as well, because that helps too.
My last words are, lawsuits don't care how good your program is. so if it's even for self-preservation, if that's where you are, start. Quan said, don't give them Takis either. Yeah, those trash. Give them some. Try to give them, and put on your forms, field trip forms, or anytime you're gonna have a game or something, put dietary needs questions on. And I use Google Forms for field trip permission slip forms now, because it's as easy as a checkbox. And that checkbox, it just saves you time, but you can have that spreadsheet on your phone. You can just open up forms on the app, and then you can see, you can give it to your boosters, say, hey, this kid, and this kid cannot have. These kids can have. That kid has asthma. If you put that all in some type of digital platform, digital form, it's easier for you to track. It's something, try to have it something that you can access from your phone, because you never know. And yes, don't give them Takis or those daggone stupid hot Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos, man. Who's eating that garbage in the morning? Children are. They are, trust me. All right, good people. Thank you for tuning in. Share, subscribe to the Passionist Network. There's other podcasts on the Passionist Network. Tune in. Secondary sessions, the feature, Talk That Talk on Wednesdays. All that. It's just good information. Thank y'all for support.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.